morning, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are, YouTube. So firstly, apologise for hand holding the audio recorder. I brought my microphone here to the track ready to shoot this video and I've picked up a dead one, so the audio is being done via my audio recorder. But there you go, that's how it goes. So this is just going to be a quick look at what it takes to make a ZZR 1100 run 9.5 second quarter miles. It does involve quite a lot of work. So we're here at European Finals. We've just gone through scrutineering. First day of qualifying is tomorrow. So have a quick look around the bike and you can see what it takes to do this. So starting at the front, the first thing to notice is that the headlight isn't a headlight at all. That's actually just a sticker. The class rules in 950 bike require to have a representation of the front and rear lights. So that was simply a photo taken of the original headlight with a DSLR, turned into a sticker and put on. The battery actually lives behind there. You can't really see it, it's down behind the screen, but the battery lives down there instead. It's good because it keeps a bit of ballast and weight at the front, and it's something we've got to have anyway. And we've got the nitrous outlet purge outlet is there. That's where the purged nitrous oxide escapes when you purge before a run. And you'll notice we've only got a single front disc, and that's because you simply don't need the braking. It's pointless weight, it's pointless drag. It's a free modification that there's just no reason not to do. And also just here, you'll see there's a strap. And this strap is actually used to pull the front suspension down. So what you do is compress the forks, pull that strap through, that bottoms out the forks and gives us the minimum ride height of 50mm, but means that the bike's closer to the ground and therefore slightly less likely to wheelie. For the cost, great modification that's well worth doing if you're going to drag race one of these bikes. So moving up to the dashboard, of course this is completely different to a stock ZZR. The dash is made of a material called something because I have got no memory, but it's a aluminium diabond. It's an aluminium and polythene sandwich, and obviously ammeter, and that's our air fuel ratio gauge, and tacho we don't really use, but that is the important part. That's the shift light. That's obviously where we gear shift. This is the air shifter, so that button pressed pulls the solenoid and air solenoid up and changes gear without us having to shut the throttle, so we gear shift in about 100 milliseconds. That's the main override switch for the nitrous. That switch is normally in the back of the bike. That's the master power. This one here goes into this slot next to it, which is a magnetic kill switch. So if anything happens, that's a lanyard around the rider's wrist. You come off the bike, that pulls and that will cut out. That's our purge solenoid button. That purges the nitrous. And that is the starter button. So that's all fairly straightforward in that respect. We're at a slight disadvantage because we run a hand clutch rather than a lock-up clutch, so you still have to feed the clutch out, but you're from clutch in on the two-step, which has got a really distinctive sound, to being fully out on the clutch in less than a second, so it's a very quick release on the clutch. Now we're using clip-on handlebars, which has allowed us to push the yokes down the forks. That lowers the bike further because the stock ZZR is far too high, and that has necessitated having to cut the fairing all the way around here in order to clear on full lock. Also, to make sure that the handlebars don't foul the fairing, we've had to put lock-stop restrictors in, which you can't really see but are down here. That also then meant the thermostat housing had to move down, which meant there was problems with clearance with some hoses on the other side. The list just goes on and on. The engine is an 1109 big bore engine with forged conrods and forged pistons. It's got APE rod bolts, APE studs and ARP rod bolts. It's always difficult to remember everything, but built mainly for strength rather than for power. Then of course we've got the air shifter solenoid there. That is just simply an air shifter solenoid. There's a compressed air tank that sits under this panel here. And when you hit the button on the dash, there's a box that cuts the ignition, releases a pneumatic valve, fires that solenoid upwards and shifts the gear up. Moving back, that's just a straight through stainless steel exhaust we fabricated ourselves. It's got the wideband O2 sensor in it. And then we've got a Regina drag chain, and this is actually different to a normal road chain because it has no O-rings, no X-rings, anything like that. It's designed to be as low drag as possible. And as quite common practice on drag bikes, we actually run a master link rather than a rivet link. It means that if you've got to take it apart, it's a lot easier to do. It's not a problem in drag racing at all. The stainless steel chain guard, well, a chain guard is a requirement, and when we actually lost a chain recently, that saved a lot of damage on the bike, so well worth doing. That's fabricated by one of our sponsors, Paneltech. The swing arm's been extended. These were our own design. This curved weld here is where the original spindle and chain adjusters would be, so you can see how much further back they are. Then always noisy during a test day. Then you've got our rear foot pegs. This is where your feet actually end up on a run. Really give you sort of a Superman riding position. And that's a ZX-9R rear wheel, which is significantly lighter than the standard one. Back in here, we've got the Shinko Hookup Pro drag tyre. It might look like a relatively normal tyre, but they behave very differently. And the combination of the swing arm, the lowered front end, and the drag tyre mean that we can, from wide open throttle, just let go of the clutch with very little wheelie or virtually no chance of wheelie. Then, of course, around the other side, we've got the nitrous oxide system. It's called a wet system, and that injects nitrous oxide and fuel into the bike's engine to keep the mixture stable. So we're not relying on the carburetors for further enrichment. Underneath the seat, there is a fuel cell. That fuel cell is 3mm thick aluminium and actually forms the seat base with the seat on. This is just our little booster battery, which we use to keep the nitrous bottle heated as well. And finally, this whole seat and tank unit is one fiberglass piece that was made by ourselves. I'll put a little photo of that in progress there. And that is just basically lighter, much lighter. This is basically the limits of the airbox in here, so we can't get any more height out. That moved the rider forwards and down and is much lighter, and that also helps with the launch. So there you go, that's roughly what it involves. There's obviously hundreds of other things like Ignitec ignition, which allows us what's called a two-step, which is where it holds the revs at RPM for launch when the clutch is in. And there's many things. You could build an almost endless list, but that's roughly what it would take to get a ZZR 1100 from 1995 to run a 9.5 quarter mile. If you like these videos, hit the like and subscribe button. We've got qualifying tomorrow, we'll see what happens, and see you in another video soon.